You've been calling it modesty, you've been calling it humility, but it's not. It's disappearance. And you've been disappearing so quietly, so politely that no one noticed. Hi, my name is Salma. I am an empowerment coach and I help women who have been struggling with self-doubt and who have learned to shrink, to reconnect with themselves and to step into the fullest unapologetic expression of who they are. And so today we're going to talk about something that has been disguised as a virtue, but it's not. We're going to talk about shrinking and how we've been hiding behind modesty and humility to keep doing what we have learned to do, to shrink. We're going to define what each one of them actually mean. We will also talk about audacity, about boldness, about arrogance, bragging, about these words that might be scary, so that we step into the ones that sets you free. One thing that I can promise you, by the end of this video, something in you will shift. Something in you will change. You're going to be more aware and conscious and have the tools to break that shrinking pattern and maybe change your mindset. Okay, here's what most people believe. Making yourself smaller is a sign of a good character. It is not. Not taking too much space makes you likable. Downplaying your gifts keeps you safe. And being quiet is the same as being wise. This is not humility. This is not modesty. It's self-abandonment. Humility is knowing who you are. Humility is knowing your size and being at peace with it. Let me break this down for you because most people confuse humility and modesty. And I've seen women losing years of their life because of this confusion. So when you think of humility, think internal. It's grounded. It's self-aware. It's knowing who you are and knowing what you're capable of. When you think of humility, think that I don't need to either perform greatness or smallness to feel secure. Humble people, they're not loud, but they're also not hiding. When you think of modesty, think of external. It's how you choose to present yourself to others. And so modesty, it's a choice. It's something you decide. It comes from intention, not fear. Here is where most women get it wrong. They've been calling it modesty and humility, but what they were actually doing is shrinking. Shrinking is exactly what happens when you not take up too much space, when you bury your opinions, when you swallow your words, when you repress your emotions so that others stay comfortable. And so that is a strategy that you have learned in childhood to stay safe, to be likable, to be easygoing, to be a people pleaser, to not be rejected, to be accepted. And so shrinking is a fear response that could disguise itself as being humble or being modest. It's self-erasing when you make yourself smaller to keep other people comfortable. And so you learned this in your childhood as a survival strategy to keep being safe, to not be rejected, and it became a habit. And the more you shrunk, the more you reinforced that habit, the more it became your identity. And so the question is not, am I humble or modest? The question is, are you hiding behind modesty, behind humility, behind these virtues? Let me show you how shrinking actually looks in real life. Sometimes I would just reach out to my boss or some colleagues at work and I would say, I don't want to bother you. I don't want to take too much of your time. I wonder if you have like 2 minutes for me. I don't want to be a burden. I'm sorry, but do you? God. And suddenly my request became apologetic. I delivered it half retracted. It's already bracing for rejection. And so the most painful thing about shrinking is not what other people do to you. It's what you do to yourself so quietly every single day. And so why do we shrink? Why do we do this to ourselves? Here's what happens. It didn't come from nowhere. Actually, you shrink because along the way, you have decided that being visible, exposing yourself, showing your authenticity was dangerous, was a threat, was not safe. And so shrinking is a developed pattern, a developed strategy to keep you safe. I call it also the little girl pattern, and here is why. When a little girl is grounded by an adult, what does she do? Well, she goes quiet. She shrinks and she tries to make the adult happy again. And so what I've discovered in my own life is that as an adult woman, when we face criticism, we return to that same posture again. We shrink ourselves and then we seek approval. And so we become that little girl again. There is nothing wrong with your little girl. This is not a weakness. It's just a learned strategy to keep you safe. But that same strategy is no longer helping you right now. That strategy is costing you a lot. It is costing you your life. You are not broken, I promise you. You were beautifully, brilliantly adapting to environments that were too small for you. You were placed in environments that were too small for you, and in trying to fit in, you cut off part of yourself. You called it humility, but it's not. Or maybe you called it being the bigger person. But cutting off parts of yourself is loss. I want you to hear this. You were not trained to be humble. You were trained to be less. And less is not your nature. Less was your armor. It was a protection. Hear me out. Your instincts are real. Your voice, your presence, your ideas, your thoughts, all of this, you matter. Your presence should be fully expressed. This is not arrogance. That is the whole point of you being here in this world. That is the whole point of you living this life. And so I want to prepare you for this. When you start rising, people will have a word for it. They will call it arrogance. They will call it too much, but it's not. So let's talk about audacity and arrogance just to see the difference. Because between stop shrinking and stepping into your power, there is a word that makes women uncomfortable. Bold. Being bold. We were never taught to be bold. Nobody ever sat us down and said, this is how you take up space with confidence. This is how you affirm your opinions without apology and without shrinking. We were never taught that. And so when we see a woman who owns her opinion, we never think, oh, she knows herself. We sometimes think, who does she think she is? But that reaction is your conditioning speaking. So let me give you a distinction to hold on to that will change how you see things. Arrogance says, I'm above you. Audacity says, I refuse to be beneath myself. Audacity elevates the self by diminishing others. It needs comparison to survive. But audacity doesn't need anyone else. It's a choice to refuse making yourself smaller to keep someone else as comfortable. That's it. And here's what nobody told you. Boldness is not a personality trait. Boldness is a practice. It's like a muscle. It needs to be trained. So you practice affirming yourself before you walk into that room. You practice letting your opinions be your opinions, full stop. And you practice taking up space in small rooms, in moments. You practice standing taller and talking where nobody gave you permission. And here is the truth about reclaiming your voice. It will feel at first like arrogance. It will feel like you have done something, like you have crossed the line. But guess what? That feeling means you did something good. That feeling means you did something great. And so the more you practice, the more you affirm yourself, the more you take up space, and the more you let yourself be fully present. And then the quieter that fear becomes. You stop to earn the right to fully exist. You stop performing smallness so others take up more space. You stop calling self-abandonment humility, and you start showing up as fully, unapologetically you. And that, my friend, is not arrogance. This is exactly what you were born for. And so part of that practice, brag, learn to brag more. Not from that place of insecurity, but as an act of reclamation. Because for years you minimized your gifts. For years you deflected every compliment. For years you said, oh, it's nothing, when it was everything for you. And so conscious, grounded bragging is acknowledgement of your own gifts. It's the antidote of all these years of self-erasure. It is you finally agreeing with what's always true about you. And so let me give you something concrete to work with, because what is awareness without action? The first thing is start paying attention to this moment right before you make yourself smaller. Start noticing those flickers. There is always a flicker, and then name it out loud. Say at that moment, oh, I'm shrinking right now. Don't try to fix it. Just noticing it, remove that automation that was running for years. Remove the habit that was running on a repeat. The second thing is remove apology when you speak up your mind. Don't say, I might be wrong, but I feel like we might or we could do this. Just say, I think we should do this. Don't say, it might not make sense what I'm saying right now, but this is, just say, here's my perspective. Do you hear the difference between how your voice sounds on both sentences? And let me tell you something, your body will resist this. It will feel like you're doing extra effort to be bold, and it will feel like you're exposing yourself. But you know what, my friend? That feeling means you're doing something great. That feeling is exactly the edge of your expansion. That feeling is exactly the evidence you're healing. So before I wrap this episode, I want to leave you with one question to sit with this week. Where are you shrinking? Not where are you being humble or modest? Where are you disappearing? Where are you cutting off part of yourself? Where are you waiting for permission to finally arrive? Because let me tell you something. You don't need permission. That permission was always yours. So stop shrinking, reclaim your light, and express yourself fully. If this episode resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear this. And wherever you're listening from, make sure to follow the podcast so you won't miss what's coming next. If you want more emotional tools, you can join my newsletter. You will find the link in the description below. That was your reminder that you were born to shine. That is the whole purpose of this podcast. See you in the next episode.